This is the Horse Radio Network.
Taylor Harris Insurance Services. There for all equestrians, amateur and the professional. For all types and all breeds. No matter what discipline or level. Taylor Harris is committed to excellence in serving you and protecting the horses you love. Taylor Harris Insurance Services, your worldwide equine insurance specialists.
This is the Plaidcast. I'm Piper Clem, publisher of the Plaid Horse magazine, and today I'm joined by co-host Katie Stazak, and we are going to be checking in with USCF Large R judges and authors of the new book, Judging Hunters in Equitation, Want the Facts, Julie Winkle and Tricia Booker.
The Plaid Horse magazine presents the Plaidcast, the leading weekly podcast for hunter jumpers everywhere.
Welcome back to the Plaidcast, Katie.
Thanks for having me.
So I have seen more and less of you in the last 8 weeks than I feel like I've seen you everywhere, and we haven't had like 1 second of time to actually talk or catch up.
That's pretty accurate. We've both been making the rounds at all the indoor finals and championships, and it has been a whirlwind of a fall. It's hard to believe it's November already. It's been great to see you, though, for the most part fleetingly, but for me it was really special to be able to be at the ring and watch you ride at the National. That was really fun and great to get to see you enjoy a moment. We're always running and rushing and putting work first, and to be able to watch you have a moment in the ring for yourself and make the most of it was really fun for me.
Absolutely. I think I can share this now. I made my own. I heard that they were doing the Adult Hunter Classic for the first time this year at the National Horse Show from my friend Maya Schneider while we were at pony finals this summer, and everyone was so busy, and Balmoral was so busy with pony finals, and Emily Ellick was so busy with pony finals that I made my own show management system account, and I didn't ask anyone, and I just entered the Adult Hunter Classic, and I just figured I would scratch because I knew that there was no way I could get it all together, and I also didn't want to have a bad horse show because Emily told me like a year and a half ago that if I have 5 horse shows in a row without scaring her at all the entire horse show, or 6 horse shows in a row without falling off, I can move up to the 3:30 a.m.
So would that have accomplished that? Does that tick the box?
No, well, so I don't know. It might still be debatable if it counts. I did not fall off, but I might have scared her. So I think it counts towards the 6 and not the 5. But but I didn't want to go. I haven't ridden in like 3 months. I haven't. So I was like, oh, and I'm gonna be like a hot mess, and the pressure at the National Horse Show. It's obviously so magical and such a dream, and that's when I tend to bring, my biggest hot mess game is when I get blubbery and be like, oh, my childhood dreams are coming true. Let me miss really hard to this jump. So so I just kind of left it there and thought about it for a long time, and then it ended up just being incredible. It all came together last year. I tried to do Capital Challenge, and the way scheduling worked, Emily couldn't get there until right before, and then I hadn't ridden and I hadn't practiced, and then I wrecked him in the schooling ring. And so this year Emily couldn't get there until right before, but she was able to get him down early so that Carlton could teach me for a week, and then she got down there, and he had to go back to Sunshine Series, so she came in and helped me the day before and the day of, and it ended up just being like the best of I got the best of everything, and everyone helped me, and everyone came together to make this happen for me, and that was so special, and it meant so much, and Ruben was so good, and it was fun. So I'm really glad you got to be there and be part of it too.
You looked like you were having an absolute blast, and that was the best part of it. I saw you kind of take a breath after the first jump, and then, 2 lines in, there was just a giant smile spread across your face, and that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And, it's like this horse is just fun, and it's been such a joy, and it's always a challenge with him, because I know that if I don't step up and do it, that he's going to take me literally. So it feels like such an accomplishment to actually step up and do it on him. And I love putting the work in. I love that he's there for me every step of putting the work in. And it's great to have that all come out in the wash sometimes.
Amazing.
And then you were commentating. I mean, I think that Grand Prix at the National Horse Show, that Grand Prix is always such a great FEI World Cup qualifier every year anyways, but I thought this year was like outstanding even for that class. I mean, I just thought it was such an incredible Grand Prix. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, it was a super class. Hats off to Bernardo Costa Cabral, the horse designer. He also set at Washington, obviously a completely different venue from what we had. Obviously, Washington was at Tryon this year, so we went from outdoors to indoors. He set a very different test that was incredibly fair, but also technical. We had an incredible cast make the jump off, and the final few riders. It was just a sensational group between McLean Ward, Kent Farrington, Daniel Blumen, Tiffany Foster, and Margie Engel were your final 5 to jump off in a jump off of 9. And it was a little bit interesting because it was one of those classes where you expected with those kind of blockbuster names for the class to just get faster and faster. And it became much more of a strategic play because everyone knew that Kent Farrington was behind them. Kent and Margie were the final 2 to jump, and everyone wanted to put the pressure on Kent. And in trying to do so, the rails fell. And in the end, Kent was actually the only rider to produce a double clear and was kind of able to take his foot off the gas a little bit. At the same time, in the first round, his mare was jumping exceptionally, so much so that he got jumped loose and lost his right stirrup, which that takes something to jump Kent Farrington loose. Of course, his leg did not move the remainder of the course without that right stirrup. He jumped it no problem the final 3 fences, including the final double, without that right stirrup. Leveled things out, took a little bit of a breather in the jump off, and it became more of a strategic play there. But it certainly was full of just elite combinations and some surprises as well. So it was a joy to commentate. I loved the course, great field, and it just leaves you feeling really excited about the sport. This is a huge year for us with FEI TV and the North American League, as we have 2 hours on CBS Sports in prime time for every World Cup qualifier. It's really everything that I could dream of and hope for the sport in trying to increase its mainstream exposure. We reach a whole new audience in a tremendous time slot. So my hat is off to the FEI and everybody who has made that possible. And the riders are delivering and contributing great classes to boot. So we're halfway through the North American League season, and I'm super excited for the final 4 events. And I'll see you again at our next event in Las Vegas.
Absolutely. And watching that class, it was such a reminder to me that like so much of the sport comes down to fundamentals and essentially basics. I mean, you saw the rails that were coming down as they were going faster and faster, were, shifting on their track and like cutting this and cutting it a little too much, or, it's that rideability and, and it's such a reminder that at every level of this sport, the basics are so incredibly difficult. Like the basics of riding are so hard, and that's why the sport is so hard at every level, because we're all fighting against, physics and straight lines and bulges and track and pace and rideability and focus and listening at every level of this sport. And no matter what you're showing in, I mean, it's just hard. And watching these riders who are so unbelievable, essentially struggling with the same things. I mean, at such a high level, but struggling with the same things that all the rest of us struggle with in our riding as they, put the gears, the guns in gear to go really fast and cut their turns and then really try to beat each other. It's fascinating how our sport really comes down to these fundamental, mathematical, physical lines and biomechanics.
Absolutely. There's such fine details that, that need to come into play. And of course, we're all taught to, make it look seamless and easy in these, invisible aids and cues. And as, you're broadcasting and we're trying to reach this new audience and explain how difficult it is when so many of these riders make it look easy and that it does come down to fundamentals. It's a unique challenge. There's always this fine line when we're on air of catering to the very educated, very, devoted in the trenches type rider that's watching at home, as well as the newcomer to the sport, and not dumbing things down, but also explaining in a way that's going to intrigue and interest someone and educate them on the sport. So we're always trying to do that. And like you said, it all is fundamentals just taken up a notch and taken to that next level. And you never stop building upon those fundamentals and strengthening them. When riders take that next step with their horse and they maybe struggle in a World Cup competition, like as we saw some new combinations stepping up to the level, they go home and they practice those fundamentals and they do it at a very small height. And then they take that and apply it to that next level. So it's a constant process.
Yep. And that, that the extra level of rideability you need for every 3 inches the jumps are bigger, is just, it's an exponential function. And that's why it's so much more exponentially difficult to ride. Some of those jumps were huge. I mean, I was watching Margie horse walk and the jumps towered over her.
Well, Margie tends to make them look rather large. I wouldn't say it was the biggest track or the most technical track, but the challenge is it's not just as the jumps get bigger, it's doing it indoors in that sort of venue. That's a really unique ring. There's absolutely no corner. It's an oval. You've got stadium on top of you. It's a really unique atmosphere, and that's the challenge there. And of course, competing under pressure in those circumstances all contribute to the challenge of that course. If you would have taken that course and placed it outside in a big field, everybody could have jumped clear. There would have been a lot of clear grounds out there. But so much more difficult going indoors in that small venue. Talking to Margie with Deacon's, her horse is massive. And that is not an easy venue for him. And it did catch up with him a little bit in the jump off, by no fault of his own. But it is not easy in that small space. And that's another fun challenge. And you just kind of see all of that, come into play, of course, during the clay finals when things really do get down to the fundamentals. But it's all the same things that you're seeing, just a little bit slowed down.
Absolutely. And, and I thought we ended up seeing a lot of the same, track issues and, same thing as you talked about, as we saw new pairs trying to move up a level of competition in the McClay finals on Sunday. It was fascinating to watch how it was a lot of the same things in play in that ring. Definitely.
They call the equitation, in our country, the foundation of everything. And I'm a big proponent of that. Everyone has their own plan. We see a lot of kids that just start and come up and, through the, children and junior and young rider and U25 ranks, and that still happens. But, the equitation really teaches you so much. The strength in your position. Number one above all is track. Rideability, and so many things, including dealing with pressure in those situations, because there's no greater pressure really than those finals, because absolutely nothing can go wrong. Even when you're jumping, a big track, if you make a small mistake and a distance doesn't work out great and your horse helps you out a little bit, you still have a shot. But you don't. In the equitation ring, it is seeking perfection, which we all know doesn't truly exist, but they get very, very close. So it's a great test and a great stepping stone, and something that I'm very proud to have come up through. And it's really fun for me to watch every year, especially after, commentating and seeing all the World Cup riders the night before. So it's a fun weekend for our sport, and a lot of great sport to see.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick break here and be back with two of our favorite judges, Julie Winkle and Trisha Booker.
Hello, this is Dr. Marty Adams, equine nutritionist for the Legends line of horse feeds and supplements. Horses can be very thin-skinned due to breed and clipping and burn a lot of calories during performance activities and in the winter to stay warm. You can help your horses replenish those calories with Legends Fortified Pelleted Rice Bran. Legends Fortified Pelleted Rice Bran is an extruded 18% fat supplement. It's designed for show horses, performance horses, and hard keepers. This easily digestible extruded pellet supports muscle development and hoof condition and blends very well with other grains to help enhance your horse's feeding program. Try Legends Fortified Pelleted Rice Bran out for yourself. Take advantage of our $3 off per bag discount through November 30th. Print your coupon at legendshorsefeed.com.
Don't you love opening your mailbox and seeing something in there you actually want? Something in there that isn't a bill, political mail, or a donation request? Something you want. Subscribe to the Plaid Horse magazine and we'll deliver that feeling 9 times a year. That's right, you can subscribe to the Plaid Horse magazine. That way you'll never miss an issue. Sign up at theplaidhorse.com.
Julie Winkle is one of the foremost trainers, judges, clinicians, and educators in the country. Julie is an R-rated judge in hunter breeding and hunter jumping seat equitation since 1984 and has presided over many of the country's most prestigious horse shows, such as Devon, the Pennsylvania National, Washington International, the National Horse Show, Capital Challenge, the USHJA International Hunter Derby Championships, the USCF Pony Finals, and the USCF Sally B. Wheeler National Hunter Breeding Championships. Julie has designed courses and judged the ASPCA Maclay Finals, the Dover Saddlery USCF Medal Finals, the Platinum Performance USCF Talent Search Finals West, and the New England Equitation Championships. Julie is also a committed volunteer to the sport and has served on many committees and task forces. Trisha Booker is a lifelong equestrian who has been fortunate to make horses her vocation and avocation. Trisha is an R-rated judge in hunters and hunter jumping seat equitation and hunter breeding and has more than 30 years of judging experience. Trisha also owns and operates Cameron Green Media LLC and is an award-winning writer, editor, and photographer. As the editor of the United States Hunter Jumper Association's In Stride magazine since 2010 and former editor and staff member of the Chronicle of the Horse, Trisha has traveled the country and world, taking photographs and covering equestrian competitions for more than 3 decades. Together, Julie and Trisha wrote Judging Hunters and Equitation WTF, Want the Facts. This book demystifies the subjective process of judging horse shows, focusing on the hunter breeding, and equitation divisions, and delves into the history of showing and how the rules and regulations evolved based on fox hunting. Well, welcome to the podcast, Julie and Trisha.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Great to be here.
It has been really exciting to see the release of your book. I'm not sure, to be honest, how the two of you found time to put this together within your schedules. You have done so much in this industry, so I know a lot of people will really benefit from the perspective put into this book. It would probably take another book to describe really what got you to this point in your careers, but can we just start with getting a little bit of background from each of you of how you've gotten to this point and what brought about this book. Trisha, if we want to start with you.
Sure. I was not born into a horsey family, but my parents were very supportive of my love of horses growing up. And I started out, in the hunter jumper world pretty much from the start. And took lessons and was fortunate to have some great trainers early on, including several judges, one including Steve Wall. And anyway, I ended up just showing and having horses be a part of my life, and doing the pony hunters, fox hunted, also did some dressage and a little bit of eventing later on. And I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I have a degree in journalism. And after the school, I ended up working for Hidden Creek Farm, Mike Pulaski's breeding operation. Margie Engel wrote for him at the time, and got a lot of experience then, and ended up starting my judging career by accident. I was in college and just taking one of my young horses to a schooling show, and the judge didn't show up. So they asked if I would judge the horse show. And I ended up doing that. And it turned out to be great experience and fun. And I didn't really know what I was doing, but I managed to sit with people after that who taught me really well, and continued to judge locally for many, I guess probably about 20 years, while I also concurrently worked at the Chronicle of the Horse, and ended up staying there for over 20 years and spent 4 years as the editor before I left to start my own business. And throughout the time I showed and did hunters, jumpers, evented, did endurance as well. So I've kind of got a well-rounded background in now that. All the while I still judged and loved it. So that's a short history of my background.
And Julie, what about you?
Well, I did grow up in a horsey family. My dad was a saddle bronc rider. My mom was raised around racehorses and polo ponies. But early on, I decided I wanted to learn how to jump, which was not in the family history.
Right.
They were a rodeo family, basically. And I was pretty much self-taught, started teaching when I was 15, learned everything I could from reading and reading magazines and books, going to local horse shows and taking students to local horse shows. Was always very interested in the judging process, what the judges were looking for. And I even kept notebooks on likes and dislikes of certain judges so that I could do better next time we showed in front of them. As a young professional in my early 20s, I got my judge's license and right away received my large R and judged major horse shows all my career now. I've judged Capital Challenge, Harrisburg, Washington, the National Horse Show, pony finals multiple times, Derby finals multiple times, and was then instrumental in developing the USHJA judges curriculum for continuing education, and served on those committees and spent a decade as the co-chair of the Licensed Officials Committee for USEF. So a lot of information to disseminate to our officials that we felt early on should be open to everyone, not just to licensed officials. So that's kind of what got us interested in writing the book.
Amazing. And as you said, you had a tendency to write things down. You were involved in establishing that curriculum. Did you just kind of look at all the information you had and wanting to educate more people? Is that kind of what laid the framework in, hey, how can I share this a bit more? And maybe it's time I organize this in a different manner.
Well, it took us 5 years to put this book together.
Wow.
And we did take a lot of information that we used for the judges' clinics, but we realized that it was the trainers that weren't judges and the riders, participants, parents that needed to be educated so everyone could understand the system better, and it wasn't such a mystery, and people began to understand what the scoring was about and how their score was arrived at.
Sure. Tricia, how did you come together with Julie on this? How did the two of you decide, let's do this together? What did that look like?
So Julie and I worked together when I was editor at the Chronicle. We worked on some articles together, and we met, I believe, at a convention, a USHA or USCF convention years ago. Maybe it was USHA, but we had collaborated on a few projects. And then when I became editor of InStride in 2010, we began to work a little bit more closely on some articles. And it was one of the reasons we got together on that was a suggestion of Bill Maroney, who thought we would be a good collaboration because we had very similar thoughts on horse welfare and the hunters in general. And it turned out to be a really great start. And I ended up, at the time, I wasn't actually showing and riding. I had taken a break. My son was actively involved in high-level sports. So I was actually a chauffeur for 4 years and didn't ride. So when Julie and I started to work on projects, she invited me to come out to her ranch farm in Reno and attend an adult riding camp. And so I ended up packing up my bags, and after not having been on a horse in 4 years, she put me on a lovely, safe jumper, and I ended up having a blast and started riding with her and training with her and showing again. And then we just started talking about, how we could help the industry, because we both have very similar passions of horse welfare and improving the sport that we both love. So that's basically how it happened.
Take a quick break here and be back with Julie Winkle and Tricia Booker. Grayson Jockey Club Research Foundation is educating today's youth about horse health and how they give back to the horses and ponies who have given them so much. Please sign your child up today for their junior membership program. Learn more at www.grayson-jockeyclub.org. That's www.grayson-jockeyclub.org.
I love the laser because it works on a cellular level. This laser is FEI approved, treats swelling, pain, and inflammation on the spot, and the handy blue mode irradiates fungal and bacterial issues with ease. Whether it's used pre-performance or preventative maintenance, this tool is a win for ourselves and our clients. A bonus with use is it calms the horse's mind too. Immediately, they are more relaxed due to the endorphin releases they experience. From Ross Alexander, assistant to Casey Sarita.
Judging hunters in equitation, WTF, want the facts. And I think that's so great. One, I think it'll just draw a lot of people to the cover and hopefully pick it up. But also in what, Julie, you were alluding to, that, sometimes there can be a little bit of mystery, a mysterious air around the judge's booth. And I know a lot of judges, at least ones that I've spoken to, don't want it to be that way. And this is a great opportunity to educate and get some of that information out there. In the book, you kind of identify a lot of ideals that judges are seeking out in the hunters and equitation rings, as well as some strategies, ways to execute some improvement and performance, breaking down how things are judged. We'll start with you, Julie. What do you think is the greatest maybe misconception about what is happening in the judge's booth, and what did you want to seek out and kind of setting things straight?
Well, the first thing is people don't understand the judges are really rooting for you. We want to give the highest score possible. When you come in, we are looking for the good, not the bad, always judging the positive. And we really stress that at the judges' continuing education clinics. That's probably the first thing. The next thing is judges try to do their very best job for their own reputation.
Sure.
So the misconception that there's bias or the judges are looking at who's at the end gate, I think is really far-fetched.
Sure.
And I feel like a lot of people don't understand what the scoring bracket is and why the scores are what they are. Yes, it is a subjective sport. So there is a lot of things that are up to a judge's personal background and experience that might play a little stronger in their likes and dislikes. But at the end of the day, there is a scoring system in place and there are certain allotted scores for certain mistakes.
Obviously, the sport is evolving and, there are trends that kind of change in the sport. Tricia, what do you think about some of the current trends that you're seeing in the judges' booth?
I guess, could you elaborate a little bit more on the trends that you mean in particular?
Well, I guess I just mean with maybe the changes in the sport, maybe with derbies and things and how, you're evaluating things a little bit differently. Does the judging system kind of change as the sport evolves? Do you look at things differently? Or is it something that foundationally stays pretty consistent and, you're just adapting to different things based on, your experience and what you're seeing in the ring?
I think that it's a sport that's really revolves around tradition in the fox hunting world. And yes, certainly the derbies have played a major role in bringing a little bit more creativity and a little bit different emphasis on away from the classic hunter and more into the sport. We call it the derbies or the Grand Prix of the show jumping or of the show hunter world.
Sure.
Sorry about that, but Grand Prix of the hunter world are the derbies. So yes, it has evolved, the judging, in the fact that we have to give handy scores and there's high bonus, for high option fences. So there certainly have been changes and evolutions in the judging. And in the show ring, you'll see what I love is that, the classic hunter is still cherished, and those, green hunters and high performance hunters are fun to watch and beautiful. And then you can take a horse, like Brunello or a Jersey Boy who, has a different type of scope and also a little different type of look, and they can be super successful in the hunters on their own right. So yeah, in the judging world, trends, have changed a little bit in that regard. As far as the horses, I think it's actually opened up the hunter world to more horses and it's embracing, the qualities that we love to see, which are great jumping horses and bold riding.
Fantastic. And I like to ask judges this because obviously everyone has their own kind of vision of what this looks like. So I'd love to hear from both of you, but what is the ideal classic hunter look like to you? What are you looking for, or what's something that you're going to see in the ring that you're going to say, this is a top classic hunter? And we have some lovely ones in the sport right now that are having a lot of success. Julie, let's start with you.
So right now, and it goes right back to our book, there are 4 things that a hunter is being judged on. Even hunting pace. So we want to see a horse that is very rhythmical, has a good gallop. The second thing is a beautiful jumping style that's not only safe, but very correct and even gives extra room over the jumps. A horse that is a beautiful mover that covers the ground with a long, efficient stride. And a horse that, for me, I'm really looking for the horse's expression, which includes manners, but expression means enthusiasm for the job, that they really love the job. And in the hunters, a beautiful horse is a beautiful horse that goes a long way when you have one that's so pretty.
What about you, Tricia?
I concur with what Julie says. And also I would add that, each of those qualities is a little differently balanced depending on the division the horse is competing in. So a high performance horse, say, can have a little more enthusiasm. And while we would like to see a children's or adult hunter have a little bit less enthusiasm and be a little bit more keyed into taking care of his rider. So there are nuances in judging. We want those great traits, but we also know that, a horse that might be great for the professional might not be the right one for a junior or amateur. And we take that into consideration in the judging scheme as well.
That's a great point. And I know that you both referenced, obviously, the origins of the sport and coming from the hunt field. Clearly, we've come a bit of a ways from that, certainly with the transition from seeing a lot of thoroughbreds in the ring to now warm bloods really dominating the sport. But do you really still go back and think of those origins when you're in the judging booth, Julie?
Absolutely. I think that was one of the easiest ways to teach people about judging and get them to understand where the scores come from and how they relate to what happens in the hunt field, especially when you talk about a horse that's short-strided or breaks gait or has a rail down or jumps in poor form, adds a stride in the combination. Those things all came from the hunt field. And as we explain in length in our book, it makes it very understandable to the general public.
I think we see so many, like you said, different types of horses and classes that have you kind of take a little bit of a different perspective or looking for different things in these divisions. But it's nice to see it still going back to those origins and seeing, the evolution as well. Now, I want to talk a little bit about judging etiquette. Certainly social media has come into play with people being able to come on the internet and just kind of give whatever opinion they want of judging. When someone is maybe confused about a result or a score or wants to learn more, what is the best way for someone to learn or get some feedback from the judge in a professional and respectful manner? Tricia, let's start with you.
Sure. Well, there are protocols that are in the USCF rulebook regarding approaching a judge. So if somebody would like to speak to a judge while at a competition, they must contact the steward and ask permission. So that is in the rulebook. And another great way to ask questions beyond that, outside necessarily the show ring, is to take a judge's clinic. For instance, Julie and I, as part of this book, we're going to be offering judging workshops where we have people come and spend a day or two with us and live judging. We teach them to judge, fill out a card, go over the process, the symbols and all that. And, we had one in Reno in September that was a huge hit where people were thrilled to actually see how a judge works and do it themselves. Judge confirmation on the line with real horses. And then we had a mock horse show the next day where we all judged together. And Julie and I talked about the horses going around the ring as they judged. And it was a great opportunity for people to learn about judging firsthand.
And can anyone take a clinic? Is that for, say you're not interested in becoming a judge, but you just like to learn more? That's open to anyone that has an interest?
Absolutely. That's what the clinic is all about. It's certainly open to judges and people who want to learn to be judges, but we had a variety of people attend the clinic, amateurs, a couple of juniors who just wanted to learn about how a judge works. And also on the flip side, they wanted to learn about how they can improve their performances. Knowing what the judge is actually looking for and how they work can help you improve your performances in the show ring.
Super.
I totally agree with that. Yeah. And I've been judging a little bit more locally, and it definitely, I'd always been told I'm very messy by nature. We talk about this a lot, and it takes a lot of effort for me to not be filthy at all times. And it really is. I had heard it, my whole life, like stop being messy, stop being messy. But it really, you look up and notice the people who come in with presence and, ride right in and are bold and are looking for that first jump and look like they have their act together. And you're just so conditioned to have them have a successful round.
Right. And I mean, you can tell as a judge when you're sitting in the box who walks in confident and prepared and beautifully turned out. That person is entering the ring wanting to win. There's no doubt.
So where can people learn more about these clinics?
Right now, we have some information on the website, judgingwtf.com, and we'll be including a little bit more information. We're accepting dates, and we've had a couple of people, secure dates for 2022, and we've got a few more openings available. And we're earmarking this for not only barns that maybe want to host a clinic, but also colleges and universities who may want to also learn more about the judging process to improve their team scores. And IHSA and IEA shows in particular are a great fit for that.
And where can people buy the book?
InCoursePublishing.com is actually our stable of books. And also you can access that through judgingwtf.com as well. And on a side note, I want to give a shout out to the designer of the book, Michelle Block. She did an amazing job putting this together because it was a very involved process. And she just did a fantastic job making our words and pictures, come together in this beautiful show. It just shows off the quality of the book and the articles. And we also include articles that we've written for other publications. Julie has written some for the Chronicle and InStride, and I've included a couple that I wrote for InStride and the Chronicle as well. And we have judges' cards. We have 20 top judges that we've asked to contribute to the book who offered their tips and ideals of what they look for in the show ring. So those are also throughout the book, and it's really easy to follow and read because it's designed so well, I think. Process of doing this book, Michelle and I worked on self-publishing along with Julie, and we decided that after going through the process and spending a couple of years figuring out the difference between magazine publishing and book publishing, which there's a huge learning curve, Michelle and I decided to start in-course publishing. So we're going to help other writers who would like to self-publish equine books, produce them, and we're just another, a way that they can self-publish, and it's customized. So if someone needs help, in one particular area, then we're here to help them because we've spent several years learning all about it.
Absolutely amazing. I'm sure in all of your free time too. But congratulations to you both, and thank you to you both for the effort that you've put in to making this book and really bringing people a bit closer into the judge's booth and to educate. I know Piper and I both, that's a big goal of ours is to educate, and that's what you're doing here. So I think Piper has some nice new reading for her next set of courses.
I have a few things to add, if I may.
Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely.
Part of the book goes through medal finals and Maclay finals, talent search finals that I've had the opportunity to judge and design courses for. And those courses are in the book, and how we came up with them, who won that year, what we were looking for as judges, getting to design our own courses. And we also included in the book some fun stories about things that have happened in certain venues and some funny things about us making mistakes, but the judges are just human.
So you get to learn, laugh, and have some practical application to practice at home. Sounds like a great book. Well, again, thank you both so much. Congratulations. And we'll make sure that we add some links into our show notes here for everyone listening at home so they can get right to it and purchase a copy of their own.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Is your horse a hard keeper? Are you tired of feeding 3 or more supplements daily and still have yet to see desired results? Make feeding simple again with Excel Supplements. Our proprietary camelina oil is easy to feed and covers many of your horse's needs. With as little as 2 pumps a day, this powerful omega oil has been proven to help with joint pain, muscle development, reduce recovery time, and aid in preventing hindgut ulceration while building your horse's top line. Excel's camelina oil is grown and produced by Excel for your animal's overall health. Order risk-free at excelsupplements.com.
Get ready for Book 4 of Show Strides, the Plaid Horse's very own book series for young readers. The latest novel, Testing Friendships, is available to order now at theplaidhorse.com/books. In the newest book, the Oaks riders are focusing on their goals for the fall. Tally gets the ride on her first project horse, Mac looks to build on her success from pony finals, and newcomer Maggie joins Ryan's Field Ridge team as she looks for a horse or pony of her own. But one moment of carelessness in the ring will change everything for all 3 girls. Visit theplaidhorse.com/books to order.
Well, Katie, it's so great to hear from them. And as they said, there are over 20 judges and professionals whose expertise they included in the book, including Carlton Brooks, whose own book is going to be coming out next year in 2022. So a lot of exciting stuff there. And I do think that people are more and more realizing that judges are cheering for them and they want what's best for them, and their job is to order the class. And it was interesting. A long time ago, I judged one of my first local shows, and Carlton asked me how I liked it, and I was like, I want to be so positive, and I want to give people positive feedback, and I felt like judging. It didn't feel educational to me, and I said that to him, and he's like, no, you don't understand. Like, ordering the class is an education. Putting them in order is educational for the people competing in the audience, and knowing where they stand is educational. And we all know that I will forever advocate that we have scribes and we get more feedback, and I think we should get so much more feedback at the hunters. But exactly as Trisha said, I have gone through the correct and proper channels. I've talked about it on this podcast, of approaching a steward and saying that I would like to, respectfully ask the judge, what went on in some class, or if they had any tips for improvement or feedback. And, I'll be completely honest, I have not really ever been satisfied by answers that I got when I have done that. But I have tried to go through the channels and tried to do that. And the judges have a rationale for how they ordered the class, and they are human. They do make mistakes too. There are a lot of bay horses in the undersaddle.
That's right.
I think that having the best policies we can for judges with continuing education, I think judges had almost no continuing education before Julie really spearheaded this. I still think that they don't have enough, in my opinion, continuing education. And I know that she and many others have been forever spearheading more projects to keep things moving. The judges really want you to walk in the ring prepared and with purpose, right, and fresh and ready to be successful. And I loved getting to hear from their perspective.
I know. I feel like I could keep judges on all day and just have so many questions. They have really difficult jobs, and they're kind of put in the public light a lot more than in the past with the advent of social media. And it's really heart-wrenching sometimes to see people, just tear apart. I mean, it's not just with judges, but, to tear apart others on social media. And there are proper channels to go through. And if you're not satisfied with the process, I love what Julie and Trisha are doing in creating an opportunity where people can go and learn more in these clinics, and anybody can. And that's something where I think, if you're not happy with the process, I think you should go and, if you have an interest, go through the process to become a judge, be the change, or learn from others' perspectives and gain that insight. Go to a clinic, if you don't have the time to fully, because it is a very committed process to actually become a judge, go to these clinics and learn, again, gain that insight, listen and learn from another's perspective, put yourself in their shoes. Judging is really difficult, especially at the top level. There are no horses that aren't nice. They are all exceptionally top caliber horses, and placing them is not an easy task. And every judge is different in coming from his or her own background and experiences that helped form their opinion. So, there's a lot we can and need to continue to learn from judges. I hope to see more young judges. I've thought myself at times about pursuing a judge's card. And I just think, it's all about just continuing to get that education. So hats off to these two for really putting the time in to this book and these clinics. And I hope the process continues to evolve while remaining rooted in that tradition that we love so much from the hunt field.
Absolutely. And something else kind of tangentially related to this that I thought was interesting is that I was at New England finals, equitation finals, a couple of weeks ago. And they did 2 panels of 2 judges, and they put right up on the big screen who was on what panel of judges. So it would say judge 2, Gary Duffy and someone else. And so you weren't wondering which panel or where they were sitting or who gave you what scores. You could say, the group that watched from the left side, which I know that they announce it at the beginning of the class, but it's hard to keep up, or the classes change or the judges change. And you don't always know who's sitting there or which panel is a tiebreaker. And you're able to say okay, this group is sitting over here, and you could see how their perspective of the ring would be this, and this group is sitting over here. And, I thought it might be something, because a lot of judges don't like change, and they don't like, I talk about the most simple things. I'm like, well, obviously to me, which is not a rule, but obviously to me, they should be putting their cell phone in a Tupperware container as they walk into the box and not touching it all day. Right. That's not, it is discouraged, but it is not in the rule book, and they do not do that. But I asked Gary Duffy when I saw him at the National, I said, how did you feel about having your name next to your score with every horse? And he's like, I loved it. There should be no confusion as to what's going on. Or where your score is coming from, or, who's giving it. I think when you're up there and, putting everything you have into judging, there's no reason that, your score shouldn't be out there. And I thought that was really cool that, he completely embraced transparency when I asked him about it.
Right. It shouldn't be this mystery or this inaccessible place. It should be just as Carlton said to you, placing someone is an educational opportunity to learn and observe and say, okay, well, I need to go home and work on X, Y, and Z. And that's how it needs to be viewed as, instead of, well, they didn't like me.
And I think when we don't understand this sport, we all jump to it's a mystery, or it's bias, or it's this, or it's that. And I think there will always be certain calls that we don't understand, or certain judgment calls that could go either way, and like you said, these top level horse shows, every horse is nice, every horse is competitive. But I really do think that the more we educate ourselves, and the more we discuss, and the more we ask when we don't know something, and, and I've had judges, at big horse shows tell me about big name trainers, going through all the proper channels and asking them why they put them in the order that they did.
That's awesome. I'd love to hear that.
Well, thank you for joining me today, Katie.
Oh, thanks for having me. A great conversation as always. And I look forward to seeing you soon again in Las Vegas.
Just because the temperatures are starting to heat up doesn't mean that your horse has to suffer the effects of heat stress. The most innovative technology to manage heat stress and exertion in horses is finally here. This summer, Vitalize brings you a product unlike any other on the market, Vitalize Blazin'. The proprietary blend of proven ingredients found in Blazin support blood flow and cooling, promote cellular hydration, enhance exercise tolerance, and help support stamina, especially when temperatures are elevated. Don't get beat by the heat this summer. Visit vitalizeeq.com to learn more about Blazin and the other products in the Vitalize line.
Have you ever wanted to learn about horses in the equestrian industry and get college credit for it? Check out my online college credit courses at theplaidhorse.com/college. Check out theplaidhorse.com/college today for more information.
Have you ever wondered how to keep your horse sound and how to prevent future lameness issues? Have you had to deal with abscesses, stone bruises, laminitis, navicular, or soft tissue damage in the hoof capsule? Or maybe you're a farrier and you want to learn how top vets around the world diagnose and treat various hoof care issues. The Humble Hoof is a podcast for both owners and professionals discussing the health of the hoof and soundness of your horse. Check us out, published twice a month on Horse Radio Network.
Find the links to today's guests and the show notes at theplaidhorse.com/listen. You can follow the Plaidcast on Facebook and Instagram. Just search for the Plaid Horse Magazine. You can subscribe to the Plaid Horse Magazine at theplaidhorse.com/subscribe. You can have all of the Horse Radio Network shows with you wherever you go with our free app for iPhone and Android. Go to your app store and search Horse Radio Network. You can also listen on iTunes or your favorite podcatcher. Please rate and review our shows on iTunes. 5-star reviews help people discover our show. And if you enjoy our conversation, please share it with your friends. Thanks to our sponsors, Taylor Harris Insurance Services, Legends Feed, Grayson Jockey Club Research Foundation, Vitalize, and Excel Supplements.